Welcome to Awakening Streams, the podcast of One River Zen Meditation Center in Ottawa, Illinois. Hosted by Sensei Michael Bruner. Learn more, donate, and practice with us at oneriverzen.org.
Sometimes it's difficult for us to trust where we stand. We look at the circumstances as they present themselves and we feel like there should be something more, something else, that something's missing. Or that maybe we're not sufficient to the moment as it presents itself. Maybe we need to be someone else. And these feelings can spiral over and over again into the point where we feel like we're completely lost. We don't know how to recover our way. It's difficult when we enter these circumstances because the problem can be intractable. We keep talking to the one who tells us that we're alone, or that we're struggling, or that we're confused. And so the cacophony of these internal voices actually leads us to a place where we can't see the forest through the trees, where we can't change our gaze or shift our gaze and see the wholeness of the situation as it presents itself. Eihei Dōgen wrote a text called the Shobo Genzo. In the Shobo Genzo, he went to great pains to describe every facet of the monastic life, of the awakened life. And I think people sometimes mistake the intention. Dōgen talks about everything from how to sit zazen, to how to brush your teeth, to how to wipe your tail end when you're done going to the bathroom. And they think perhaps this is some sort of control that he's trying to assert over his followers. And nothing could be further from the truth. In it, Dōgen is trying to awaken us to all the Dharma gates that present themselves every day to us, if we'll only wake up to them. So even in the most mundane of circumstances, cooking dinner, toileting, brushing one's teeth, washing one's hands, you can find the fullness of the activity of the entire universe. You can recognize with precision that you're standing right in the crosshairs of your life, and that you can appreciate this in a way where you can savor all of this, rather than cutting some small parts off to say, I like this part, I don't like that part. Some we may be able to accept. Perhaps we can accept that washing our hands or brushing our teeth could be an opening to the wholeness or totality of the universe. We say, I'm willing to open to that. But even in that, there are some aspects or facets of our lived experience that we have a very hard time expecting or accepting belong. Dōgen wrote a fascicle of Shobo Genzo called Uji. Uji roughly translates as being time. But I encourage students when they read Uji or even reflect on the title, just to see it as Uji. Don't ascribe it a meaning or a title. Look for this Uji wherever you stand, and then Uji itself will manifest. But in the text, he talks about a portion of our practice that we really don't like to savor, that we really don't appreciate. And I'm going to read from it. Dōgen says, even at a stage where it would seem that you've taken a false step, this condition will be a state of being. Further, should you leave the matter at this, your condition will still constitute a persistence of a time being, or Uji, which will include both a before and an after to this having taken a false step. Dealing with thoughts and things while they persist is like a fish darting about through the water. It is indeed what being here just for the time being, what being Uji, is about. So do not be upset over what is not, and do not be pressured by what is. Such a challenging practice, but one that yields a profound opening, an ability to walk into our lives and feel comfortable with the situation that we find ourselves in, without past recriminations, realizing that each step that we take is an awakened step. Mistakes and missteps are not to be viewed as failures. They're not to be viewed as deviations from the path. They're integral parts of Uji, of this existence, of this life. Even when it feels that we've taken a false step, and there are many times we're going to feel that, this too is Uji. When this happens, we have a recognition, a deep recognition, and that recognition brings us to the place and transforms our relationship with our perceived errors, allowing us to work with them as opportunities for growth, for actualization, for awakening, rather than consigning them to a dark corner of unconscious shame and regret, where they become stale. And the odor winds up influencing every path, every step we take on the path. Mistakes are a perfect expression of the moment, this moment. We may wonder about our efforts to avoid mistakes. Yeah? Is Dōgen trying to say that whatever we do is acceptable because it fully expresses Uji? Hardly. Neglecting continuous practice under the guise that even neglect is part of practice will be a misunderstanding. We don't put it in front of us as a guide. Instead, we recognize the perfection in this moment. Other places in Shobogenzo, he likens this type of attitude, this carelessness in our practice, to a poor person throwing away his inheritance. If you're not actualized by what's here, then what are you being actualized by? You've inherited this whole vast, boundless, infinite moment. True continuous practice shouldn't be neglected. It should be savored. Every single one. Our vows bring us back to this situation where we've taken a false step, just like any situation, as a practice opportunity, not as an intellectual abstract rumination as things as we wish they were. If you haven't come face to face with this truth, then it's important that you let it set in. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to do things that don't embody our awakened intentions. But every pond that strikes the pool leaves waves. And these karmic ripples that we make from a false step are no less real. Especially these moments are opportunities to fully manifest Uji. But we can't hide. We have to show up in practice. We have to work with the circumstances that prevail. Even the ones, even the repercussions from doing things unskillful. We have to actually use these and transform them in a way that nourishes all of creation, everything that's around us. And there's an opportunity to do that. To embody this teaching, we can't be upset over what is not. We can't say, I wish I hadn't made that mistake. And we can't be pressured by what is. We can't say, boy, I made a mistake and I don't like these repercussions, so I want to get past it. Instead, we have to find ourselves squarely where we're standing, letting go of our attachment to how things should be, and releasing the pressure to conform to our own expectations. Instead, we're invited to embrace this present moment, even with its folly, or perhaps even more, all of its imperfections, all of its uncertainty, all of its difficulty. When we accept this way, it allows us to live more freely, and it allows us to be truly authentic, responding to the true circumstances of our life as they unfold, rather than being constrained by our judgments or by our fears. So Dōgen also cautions against two mistakes we make in practice. First, thinking that anything we do is an acceptable expression of being time. In other words, being unconscious at the wheel. So we need to recognize that our actions or our activity needs to be determined by the prevailing circumstances. If it's hungry, we feed it. If it's thirsty, we give it something to drink. If it's crying, we comfort it. And second, forcing practice into being. In other words, trying to work to transform the circumstances into some end state that we want them to be, rather than instead answering the imperative within the moment. To do that, we have to drop away the self. We have to drop away the things we cling to and the ideas that we have about the way things should be, and simply work skillfully with things as they are. We don't need to control and manipulate the conditions of our practice. When we do that, we're so far away from our practice that East couldn't be further from west. Both need to be integrated and accepted into this moment. To embrace Wuji in this way is to live with an open heart and to release all of the maze of barriers in our mind that point to a gaining idea. When we do this, we find a lot of grace, a lot of ability to look past all of the judgments we make on ourselves, the judgments we apply to what we call other. We find wisdom and beauty in the circumstances that as they are, whether we perceive it as true or false, good or bad. So every moment we have is a manifestation of this Wuji. And also, each false step is integral to our path, guiding us to a more profound compassion. Compassion is just a chasm that forms when we see self and other, and when we see good and bad. If we just cast ourself, or the ideas we have of ourselves, into that vast chasm, you'll find that it fills it up quickly, and you can walk freely. There's nowhere you can't go. When you embrace this truth, you realize the profound unity of your being, and you recognize there's nothing outside. You're embodying the whole universe.
Thank you for joining us. If this podcast was meaningful for you and supported your practice, please give us a hand by visiting us at oneriverzen.org today.